Hello and welcome back to another fabulous podcast series. And of course, all is for sustainability and it's championed by BYD. As you can see, we're coming to you from the showrooms of BYD. We're talking to individuals who are really actually championing the sustainability in their respective industries. And this, of course, is our second episode of the sustainability series, courtesy of BYD. We're talking to somebody who's actually no stranger as far as the food and hospitality industry is concerned, but not many people will actually know how much he sort of champions sustainability, which is actually what we're going to look into. Right throughout the series, we're also going to be speaking to industry leaders in different industries and how they've actually had that mind shift in moving towards the sustainability industry in their little pockets. And of course, we got Dharshan, Munidasa on the show. Dharshan, nice to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Dharshan, of course, lots of people know who you are. Lots of people know your restaurants, but not many people obviously have an idea of how much you really talk about sustainability. Now, before we get into that, before you obviously even became a celebrity chef, at which point did you think that, sustainability was an angle that you wanted to sort of focus as far as food is concerned?
I think in Japan, every restaurant that is so serious on or focused upon one ingredient, they would actually pay a lot of attention to that.
Right.
That the notion of sustainability, notion of using the entire animal, the notion of mottainai, which is not to waste,
Right.
comes to mind. So I think that's the root of making something sustainable or being aware of its existence is not to waste.
Now, for you, of course, being in the food industry, also trying to basically bring that mind shift here, couldn't have been easy.
To the contrary, I think Sri Lanka is a country that is aware of its resources.
Right.
And we are very frugal sometimes about our natural resources, and we use it well. The coconut tree, we use it from top to bottom.
Right.
The shells to everything gets used. So it is there. But applying that to another ingredient, another resource is difficult. But I think in principle it's there. It's how you adapt it.
When you did want to sort of impart this knowledge to your staff and basically something very important like this, how did they take it on? Did they know what this was going? Did they have the idea as to what it was all about?
To an extent, yes. To an extent, no. But I think it's all in communication.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing about communication is about making the logic behind it understood.
Right.
So that was critical. And I think every single element required a different way of explaining. But again, it's not just once that you need to explain. You need to keep on making them remember why we are doing this. And restaurants are out there, so many of us. The least we can do is try to lessen the impact on the environment.
Now, one, of course, your world-class restaurant, Ministry of Crab, you've established the fact that it's a no-freezer restaurant. Sounds a bit radical. Was that something that you started off even before you basically put the first step into Ministry of Crab?
So maybe about 200 years ago,
Right.
a sushi restaurant in Edo, which is Tokyo, we didn't have a freezer or a refrigerator.
Right.
So no freezer raw fish was already out there. We freeze things because it's convenient.
Right.
But with crab, it has to be alive. And the prawns that we use comes on ice for that purpose. And I was able to convince myself, maybe this is something we could reintroduce. Because all restaurants one time had no freezer.
Yeah.
And wanted to show the world that going back to low tech might actually be a better thing for everybody. So I wanted to show that. The first few weeks was a bit hard, but then we were able to smoothen things out and we were able to implement that.
What were the challenges in the first few weeks?
Amount of ice we required.
Right.
We are an island. We're surrounded by water. Why would we buy frozen fish? Why would we buy canned fish?
Right.
We have everything around us. It's just how we get it to our kitchens. So do you want it be frozen at some point, brought it to our kitchens, thawed out and used, or why don't we bring the entire fish to the kitchen, cut it and just use it for that day? So that was the underlying principle of it.
Now,
That we have everything.
yeah, obviously, but in terms of crabs, of course, obviously the cooking mechanism is different, the techniques are different. Does it sort of sit well with the sustainability angle that you want to go ahead?
I think any ingredient used like chicken or beef, they all have issues that we need to pay attention to. What is better, something that's organic and traveling 1,000 miles to you, or something that is farmed and is 1 mile away from you? So the carbon footprint of that ingredient versus the organic one may outweigh the benefit of farming versus non-farming. Sri Lankan products, I think most of it is not farmed.
Right.
All our fish, we have some farms coming out in the ocean, but it's still predominantly wild catch.
Right.
And with wild catch, there's certain elements of overcatching, overfishing, etc. But I mean, last 30 years, we've had a war, and that war kept all our fishermen with tiny engines. And I think what we caught was minuscule. Now we're getting there. And I think now we have to pay attention. And even with the crab, they're mangrove crabs. So
Yeah.
we wanted to support the growth of mangroves. So we did a little bit of work supporting such programs with the UNDP. And I'm trying to do as much as we can within our knowledge and resources to help mangroves, and that we hope will help other industries, other organizations to come in and pitch in.
I mean, that's what we were basically going to go into. I mean, as you said, crabs are wild caught; they're not farmed. This already puts a delicate balance as far as nature is concerned. But do you feel that there is a bit of a pushback in terms of demand versus sustainability when you're really focusing on sustainability?
Because it's wild caught, no matter what the demand is, we're not going to get more crabs.
Right.
What we get is what we get. The demand can be here, demand can be there. This is going to be constant. But we also lobbied a lot to bring in minimum crab sizes. Took us about 3-4 years, but we did start that conversation, and eventually now we have a minimum size for crab. At least that's the first step. Implementation of it by government agencies is the next.
Yeah.
I was in Batiklo about 3 weeks ago. I was there for just one day, and that day, crossing a bridge, I saw people selling crab, and they were way below the legal size. But who's going to stop them? It's not the police, not the Coast Guard. There's not enough government agencies to educate them and maybe buy and release and have programs like that so that we can, it's all about education, right? And those guys are catching it for a reason. They
Right.
need to find a way of living, put food on the table. So we need to address all those issues and not just one. So at least this is the first step.
This is the first time I've heard of a legal size crab.
Yes.
What's it? Is there a legal size for a crab?
So it's below 400, sorry, anything below 350 grams cannot be sold.
Really?
Yes, so caught, transported, exported, sold, traded, etc.
Okay.
The lobster industry has had that quite long time ago.
Right.
But not crab. And finally it got into crab.
Okay. So like you said, lots of these are fishermen, of course, in these areas. Unfortunately, they're not educated, or do they know about it and they just are willing to let it go?
I don't think they still know about it.
Right.
Even if they knew, maybe they don't.
Right.
But once I bought lobster, and one of them, which I did not flip around and check, had eggs on it. And then I returned the entire lot.
Okay.
And I asked the fisherman, why the hell are you doing this? This is your tomorrow's bread and butter.
Right.
Like, yeah, we are poor people. We don't have means of supporting, and whatever we caught, we sold. So that education level has to come.
It's fascinating, Dharshan, that there's so much that actually goes behind in terms of sustainability as far as ingredients is concerned. Like you just mentioned before, you've also done a lot of work with mangroves. what made you actually to start on something like that with the UNDP?
Uh, it's very difficult to find local NGOs promoting activity of that nature.
Okay.
And UNDP was in a program and it had a bigger net cast out. So being a part of that, a small part of that net is something better than trying to create, 2 acres of mangrove. So that made we are playing a small part in a big program.
So what are you exactly doing there with UNDP? You are maintaining the mangroves?
So we are funding a program to reforest mangroves.
Okay.
So we are doing it for 18 months. And after that, we'll take a review and maybe we'll fund it even more. It's still a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's our little contribution for now.
Darshan, now talking about sustainability, I mean, look, everybody's talking about sustainability. Everybody likes to talk about sustainability. It's also spoken about in boardrooms, hashtags, etc. But then not many people out there are really walking the actual talk there in terms of driving sustainability. In your restaurants, what are some of the invisible sustainability decisions that you've actually made that most guests don't know about?
Okay, so about 20 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago, I could not find mineral water in glass bottles.
Okay.
There were 1 or 2 companies that were trying very hard, but the bottle caps were rusting on the top.
Right.
So even if you wipe it, there's a little bit of alkaline taste, that residue that was coming in. So I started serving water in a carafe. I wrote about transporting water in larger plastic containers has less carbon footprint than small bottles.
Right.
And there's no waste because these jugs get reused. So water in a carafe was one. We did it at Ministry of Crab also when we opened. By that time, I'd done it about 10 years at Nihonbashi. We got criticized a lot saying that water should be available for free, but we were actually buying that water, chilling it, putting it into a carafe, bringing it by glass, and that was our replacement for plastic bottles.
Right.
So that was just to simply cut down on PET bottle waste. Another one was our hot sauce at Ministry of Crab.
Right.
I did not want to waste money by buying Tabasco that gets in very small bottles and get thrown out. It's imported. We have chili, so why can't we make a hot sauce on our own? So we actually have a hot sauce that's made at Ministry of Crab.
Wow.
Yeah, like that. The creme brulee coconut gets crushed. It used to get sold to copra makers. Now it's going to piggeries, pig farms. So even the coconut does not get wasted.
See, Darshan, the thing is this, right? Now we're talking about your restaurants in Sri Lanka. You've got restaurants all over the world, right? Is it easy to actually, copy and paste sustainability angle that you use here in the other restaurants?
I think Sri Lanka is very lucky that we have crabs, prawns, tuna, coconuts, everything from our land.
Right.
We don't have to import them, ship them in, increasing carbon footprint of any ingredient. So the challenges are different in other countries, but there is a market for the food we make.
Right.
The experience that we've generated in Colombo, many people want that in other countries. And I find it an honor that such people exist out there, and it's an honor to bring our crabs out there to present them. But it's tougher than Sri Lanka, and I think they have a different set of benchmarks to measure sustainability.
Right.
But here we are more carbon neutral than anywhere else.
So I mean, when you're talking about sustainability in general into industries, you're really looking at profit versus purpose, right? There's always an imbalance somewhere down the line, because someone like you who is very focused on sustainability, sustainable ingredients, making sure that there is no wastage, you obviously have that imbalance as far as profit is concerned. Now, can this also be the same with the restaurants and the other restaurants?
I don't think sustainability requires less profit,
right,
or less purpose.
Right.
Again, in this country, where we have all these resources, amazing ingredients surrounding us, we can have it at a lower carbon footprint than any other place. It is our responsibility to make sure that we keep it that way. And by doing that, you're not reducing profit or you're not reducing purpose. Sri Lankan food, all our curries can be still sourced from the wild. And I think nowadays we are farming a lot of things. You just have to make sure that it's farmed in a certain way without adding too much pollutants to the soil. Long ago, maybe 40 years ago, when everybody was trying to farm prawns, and it got destroyed. There were white spot disease. The water that was leaking out of the prawn farms destroyed our coastal areas. None of those prawns were ever made for Sri Lanka's market.
Oh,
They were all made for export.
right.
That's why everyone rushed in. So today, as long as we're making things for our 22 million people, I think that is more sustainable than any other product we can find here or anywhere else.
Is sustainable, I mean, okay, the reason I'm going to ask you this question is the fact that the restaurant industry in Sri Lanka, say focus in Colombo, is booming. You know, you can trip and fall into a restaurant, right? But in terms of actually organizing their way into sustainable ingredients and sustainability, is it more expensive for the consumer if you actually focus on sustainability as a restaurant owner?
Sometimes, yes. Depends on the ingredients. If you want to buy manioc that's coming from a no fertilizer farm,
Right.
it may be further away. So the cost of bringing that may be increasing with every mile, and the carbon dioxide output per kilo of transporting that ingredient can increase. So that is a trade-off. But again, it's what you want to do. If you want to use that organic, no fertilizer, no chemical-free manioc route, yes, then someone has to pay that cost, which eventually will become the consumer. And if you want to be a part of that value, yes. Again, it's a balance, like you said. And it has to do a lot with knowledge also. Even, so if you go to any fishing village in Sri Lanka, where fishermen boats are gathering, that's all day's catch.
Right.
Right? And I think that's great. We still have it. And it's amazing stuff that you catch. And I still stop the car when I see these things happening. And I would complain that I did not carry a knife, chopsticks, soy sauce, wasabi.
Right.
Because you can do so much stuff with it. And
Cook on the side of the road.
yes, it's you don't understand how lucky we are until you go to another country where they don't have anything of this nature.
Right.
Where chefs are relying on emails to order. So I still go to Negombo Fish Market. And last week I was there, and one gentleman came up to me, a Sri Lankan guy goes up to me, aren't you the chef, owner of Ministry of Crab? I'm like, yeah. Like, are you here for sourcing? I'm like, no, for inspiration. Which is true. I don't know what I'm going to see. And I decide a menu, just looking what comes around, what gets caught, what gets bust in. And it's interesting. And I think it's a privilege and honor to be having that at our doorstep. And I wish most chefs of Sri Lanka take that in.
That's a mind shift, isn't it? I mean, now you obviously have that mind shift rooted in you because of your cultural background from Japan, right? You can't say most of the other guys obviously have that here. So they've obviously been born into a different frame altogether. It's not easy, is it?
So I think the root of that negativity comes from the hotels we've had.
Right.
Buffets.
Yeah.
The higher up you go in that company, you sat not on an executive chair, you sat on a Hansiputra.
Right.
No one tried after a certain age. And that lack of curiosity or the loss of curiosity, I think, kept our food industry or the F&B industry of the hotels boring. Today, you have smaller restaurants trying different things. None of them have a hotel background. And that's the reason that they're successful. Yes, we need hotels serving 3 meals buffets. There is a market for that. But within that, there is no network or framework or someone with an added curiosity to come up and create their own space. And to be fair, like when I started, all my classmates from Sri Lanka were like, you shouldn't be going to a fish market. I'm like, why? It's my restaurant, it's my dish. I need to see what's there. But again, when you're running a huge factory-like kitchen, serving 300 people breakfast, another 300 for lunch, another 300 for dinner, every rupee counts. So you try to make your supply chain work for you, and eventually get products that you don't even know where they're coming from.
Right. Right.
So even today, most of the things that are coming to my restaurant, I probably know where they're coming from.
Why is that so important to you?
Provenance of ingredients is critical. That's how you know, that's half your effort to make a dish good. You cannot make good food with bad ingredients, but you can make bad food with good ingredients.
Right.
You can mess it up, right?
Okay.
So I think respect for ingredients, respect for the people who give it to you, respect for the people who grow it, farm it, catch it, all that matters.
I mean, there's you've obviously built respect for seafood and ingredients and so on and so forth. What is the next frontier for responsible food in Sri Lanka? Because the current generation, okay, I mean, this is something that we spoke about earlier on, also in terms of sustainability. The current generation care about the planet much more than the previous generation did, because they clearly understand much more. Hence, sustainability is such a big word right now in that generation, right? Going forward, the responsible food sourcing or responsible food in Sri Lanka, where do you think it's actually going? Or has the needle started to move, or do you still feel it's stagnant?
It is moving in both directions.
Oh, is it?
So first of all, our F&B industry is growing. There are more people eating outside their homes
Right.
than inside. And I think when you cook at home, you're the most sustainable, efficient, least waste kind of
That's right.
environment. When you move out of the home, even packaging is an issue. So today, if you see Independence Day rehearsals, that evening, everything's on the ground.
Right.
So I think it starts with education, and education also means respect to your land. So I would say start simple, don't litter. And if you are going to litter, try to make it something that is not plastic.
Right.
If you're using stuff in the kitchen, everyone loves to now wrap things in saran wrap in the kitchen, because that saran wrap was very expensive 20 years ago. Now it's not. Now everyone kitchen use it, and yes, you need it for a certain level of hygiene reasons, etc. But now it's used like no one's business. So that education, how to offset that and use other materials to do that, is also necessary. So yes, people are more informed and aware about trying to keep everything sustainable. And it's not only bringing sustainable ingredients.
Yeah.
It's how you cut it, how you store it. I believe if you buy a fish, you put in the freezer and use it 3 days later, you're already using electrical energy just to keep this for 3 days.
Right.
And that electrical energy is coming from fossil fuels. And the fossil fuels drain our foreign reserves, and it's coming by a ship. So the carbon footprint of that ingredient going into a freezer is considerable. But we are in a country that is surrounded by the sea. So if you take what we need for today, we are more sustainable. Yes, so people are getting towards that kind of understanding, but at the same time, we need consumers, not only the service providers, to understand and practice more environmentally sound practices that doesn't litter our land.
Well, that's where the problem is, isn't it? The consumers are not as educated as the service providers are.
Yes.
Because the service providers out there really, they know exactly what they want to provide. But if the consumer is not willing to pay for that, even though it could possibly be a bit more expensive, then the service provider goes back to wherever he feels as a consumer will be accepting him.
Yes, but it is not easy sometimes.
Yeah.
Because consumers have a notion that if you are paying for it, you provide everything.
Yeah.
But this is our country, right? You can take my takeaway food and you can throw it out of your car, the packaging, whatever, which you see a lot. But to be fair, it's been going down. I think the respect for our land is increasing, and we are not chucking things out of the window. You still see people doing it, but it's far less.
Thankfully, it's not as much as you see in any other countries, though.
Yes.
That's one thing that we obviously seen. Like we had a conversation earlier on that tourism is booming in Sri Lanka, and something that we see on social media. The first thing that they actually see, as far as the country is concerned, is how clean it really is, and that is a considerable effort of each and every one of us to actually make that clean for not necessarily for the tourists, but for us at the end of the day, for us to live, right? Dharshan, if you could possibly whisper one message out there to a young chef or an entrepreneur who's actually starting out for a restaurant business out there with your deep rooted purpose in sustainability, what would it be? It might not necessarily be something that will be easy on the ears. It'll be really hard for them to sort of accept it because, you know, at the end of the day, like we said, purpose versus profit is also something that they need to look into. What would it be?
So there was a notion one time that everything imported was better in Sri Lanka.
Right.
And therefore, a crab restaurant did not exist in Sri Lanka. When I got into Ministry of Crab, it was about 10 years after I met our supplier, and they were sending crabs to Singapore. And there was a joke, late 90s, that, or even late 80s, to have the best crabs of Sri Lanka, we need to go to Singapore to have it. So my best thing is for young Sri Lankan chefs is look around us. There's so much things to appreciate, and take pride in that. Another example is Miri's color. At Ministry of Crab, it's visible from the dining hall where we make pulsamba. Kamasutra also, it was in the very front of the kitchen.
Yeah.
Every single kitchen in this country until then kept the Miri's color at the way back in the kitchen.
So there's something to be ashamed of.
Yes. And the person who was employed last, or the youngest person in the kitchen, was tasked with doing that.
Right.
I reversed it. Like, these are our kitchen tools. So I don't like stainless steel, shiny equipment and kitchens. For me, those organic, natural, Miri's color kind of stuff is more characteristic, and it's a proud thing to have it.
Right.
Never to be ashamed of that. So take pride in what we have, use it responsibly, and don't ever think that to make a restaurant that is high-end, expensive, profitable, you need to import product. I'm proud to say Ministry of Crab is probably one of the most expensive restaurants in Sri Lanka using Sri Lankan ingredients, banan. And I think having the strength to buy that crab
Right.
was the biggest difference that MOC created. Until then, all the five-star hotels, all the chefs were using the crabs that were rejected from the export market.
Right.
So I took pride in what we had and presented that. So I think that's the biggest lesson or knowledge I can share. Take more pride in what we have, because what we have is something stunning. It's not a joke. I mean, it's not beaches, tea, cinnamon, sigiri. It's not that. We have some amazing food here.
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly what we were talking about in our previous episodes. In terms of sustainability also, we have, I mean, this is like a sustainability hub, if you really look at it. We're an island, we're surrounded by the sea, right? We've got sunshine, you know, maybe 11 months out of the entire year, we've got really good sunshine. We've really got everything in terms of we can actually make ourselves as a sustainability hub, which is something not necessarily, you know, properly explored. Policies may be an issue, approvals may be issues. Not many people understand. Education is a big issue, as a matter of fact. But in terms of the food industry, Dharshan, where do you see, say, 2030 from today, from the stuff that you've actually started, minimizing carbon footprint, making sure that you obviously still continue to practice a no-freezer restaurant, just, you know, go after fresh produce out there, give the best to your consumers. Do you see that we can actually be a hub in that area by maybe, say, 2030?
I think we are kind of there.
Oh, really?
Not 100%,
Yeah.
but as long as we don't rely on processed foods, we are almost there. If you rely on sausages, frozen Chinese rolls, all that, yes, that requires more energy. But as long as we take a fruit, we have protein and carbohydrate in our forest,
Right.
and you put them together on a fireplace and cook it, it's totally legit.
Is that why village foods taste so much better than the city food? Because it's obviously fresh produce at the end of the day. And like you said, creating sustainability with no excess, reduced waste. Is that one of the reasons that it actually tastes so much better?
I think so, yes. Like I said, stainless steel kitchens are terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst food on the planet comes from either hospitals, prisons, or schools, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're all made in squeaky clean stainless steel. I mean, it's all over. It's all stainless steel. I mean, for a reason.
Right.
Then you go to the backwaters of anywhere, interior of a country, you suddenly see charcoal, wood fire, burning leaves, blackened pots. I mean, they have some amazing character.
Wonderful. That's exactly what we're talking about in terms of sustainability on the show. And Dharshan, just before we wind up this episode, one final question for you. Do you feel the consumers are right now absorbing the sustainability idea that's been dished out to them much better than they did 10 years ago, and you hope it will be better from this point onwards? Or do you feel that the education is still very important? If it's important, how do we educate them?
I think they are more aware of the surroundings and the stories that we do tell about sustainability, but it's still not enough.
Right.
Therefore, education kicks in. And how can we educate them? It's not in schools. It's not in what you call government propaganda or handouts, leaflets like that. I think to learn something, you need to have an interest in it, and we, as the front line of a certain segment of that, can be the ones who give the messages.
It's fantastic. Darshan, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I've obviously learned a lot because, I mean, look, we know about your restaurants. We know who you are, but lots of people really don't understand the amount of effort that goes behind the kitchen in ensuring that sustainability process is actually kept alive. Yes, the guests in your restaurants, they know about it. But what we wanted to do on the episode today was to actually find out how invested you really are in that purpose in terms of sourcing out fresh produce, going out there, making sure that you know where your ingredients are coming from, which is, of course, very important. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, another fabulous episode coming to an end right here. It's all about sustainability. And of course, this whole idea is championed by BYD. It's for World Sustainability Day, talking to stalwarts in their industries and how much that they obviously invest in sustainability in their own industry to make sure that we end up with a greener planet than we actually do have right now. Till we actually see you and talk to you in our next episode, we'll catch you soon.